Hello everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to the channel. Super fun video for you today. We are going to be going over some of my favorite ways to make backgrounds. Now before we jump into this, if you are watching this and one of those people that makes tons of backgrounds and they are just piling up, something like this, guilty, then I hope that this video is super helpful for you. That's one of my biggest problems is I make a bunch of backgrounds and then I don't really know what to do with them. So I have designed a 7-page download for you. Actually, it's growing. It's probably more than that by the time this actually posts, of ways that you can actually design your backgrounds. So you can pull up this PDF, you can have pictures, inspiration, and then I can show you multiple ways to design the project. You can really just look at it to get those creative juices flowing. So that's what it's there for. You can grab that in the link below the description box of the video, and in the comment section you'll see it as well. So grab that link and you'll have that download for you whenever you get stuck. With the download that you're going to get for the backgrounds, I'm also going to give you the replay to the video that I did where we walked through that PDF and I was able to talk through it a lot more. So if you're not just a visual, but you also want someone to kind of talk through the process with you, you can have the replay for that class as well, and that will all be sent to you. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over my favorite ways to make backgrounds. Let's get started jumping in with the very first one. All right, everyone, so this is 5 of my favorite ways to make backgrounds, but also multiple ways within each. So let's start off with ink smushing. Now I'm showing you can use markers to ink smush as long as they're water-based. And I'm adding it to a craft mat, adding some water, and getting really neat mixtures. Ink smushing is one of my favorites. Obviously, it made the cut. So I am having a lot of fun here. Now, if you want to dry it in between layers, you'll get different looks. You can do that as well. You can add shimmer to it while you're ink smushing. You cannot add any more ink and dilute it a little bit and get lighter colors. So there's a lot of things you can do with ink smushing. Also, you can use acetate sheets to place the ink down on to your card panel. I recommend watercolor cardstock for this technique. Here's another way that I'm doing it. So I just put some ink pads that I had. I smushed them right onto my craft mat here. This is my white glass craft mat, and I'm picking them up that way. All right, more ink smushing, same concept, different colors. You want to just place down, maybe not cover the ink pads over each other because you can cross-contaminate on your pads like that way, so just be careful with that. And then you're just going to pick up the ink from the mat there. That's it, as simple as that, but it's so fun, and you never get 2 of the same backgrounds. Everything looks different, and then you can finish off your cards however you like, but with that super fun, colorful background. All right, we are moving into our next one, which is watercoloring. I'm going to show you 2 of many different ways that you can watercolor. This first way is a much more controlled way to do it. So you can put some masking tape down, or I'm just using some frog tape here on watercolor cardstock, and you're going to get this really controlled look with the border. I'm also going in the same direction with it versus this way where I'm just using ink pads. I don't have any special expensive watercolors, just ink pads. You can use re-inkers, you can use watercolor markers, whatever you have. And I am going to smush that onto my mat, and that's going to be sort of using my glass mat as the palette for what we're doing. So once I get those down, now you saw me spritz my watercolor cardstock a little bit with water. That's one technique to sort of do a wet on wet technique, and that's going to move the color around really well. So first I dip it in some water there. This is sort of also the lazy person's way to do it because I don't have a cup of water for clean and dirty. I just kind of sprayed the water right on my mat, and that works fine. And then I'm just having fun. I'm dipping, I am painting, and you can see with the water already sitting on your cardstock, you get this really cool movement effect. So the water kind of soaks in that ink and you can see it moving around. Did another little spritz, and now I'm getting a mixture of colors as well. You just want to be aware of what colors you're putting down in what order so that you're not getting a muddy color look, you're getting colors that blend well. So just keep that in mind when you're adding your colors. You can let this dry, or you can help it along with a heats tool, and then you can go back and add more, and you'll get sort of a darker, deeper look for your watercolor look. So that was super, super fun to do. I used the paper towel to kind of soak up some of those extra blobs of water, or again, just let it air dry and see what kind of look you get. Watercolor is so fascinating to me. I really enjoy playing with it. I don't do it enough, but it's really, really fun to get some of those pretty backgrounds. And here's just some examples of the watercolor techniques on the background of my card panels. All right, we are moving on to the next one, which is dry embossing. So I just took some mirror cardstock from the Dollar Tree, ran it through my machine here with an embossing folder, and already just gorgeous. So you can just slap a sentiment on that and call it a day. But I do want to talk about something before we continue with more techniques. Pause for a moment. I also have an embossing folder class you might be interested in. I'm seeing a theme here. If you are interested in the edited replay for that class, where we go over 4 completed projects and you have a bonus one in your instructions booklet, you can catch that link below in the same place. Register, grab the edited replay, and all the resources that go with it. All right, let's get back to some examples here. So I pulled some of this footage from that class, but I'm just going to talk briefly and give you clips of it. So we don't obviously we're not diving into the whole class here, but I wanted to show you with the dry embossing, you can add ink to your embossing folders and you can get such cool results. Now in class, we go over this in depth with multiple examples of doing ways to use your embossing folders, but look at this. How cool is that? So dry embossing, I am back. I am back with it. I'm so glad that I'm sure it didn't go away for everybody, but it did go away for me. I did not dry emboss in the last probably 6 years. So I'm really excited. I got some 3D folders and I'm having so much fun with them because I have backgrounds I make, ink backgrounds, and you can do a lot of ways we go over in the class, but you can do so many things with inked backgrounds and things that are just piling up. So great. So there's just one example. I do want to show you another quick example for your dry embossing. This is where you take the embossing folder, you run it through with your cardstock. I'm just using Accent Opaque, which is regular cardstock here, in the, I think it's the 80 pound. And you can color them. You don't have to keep it perfect. It's not going to come out perfect, but you can look at what the design is of your embossing folder and add ink to it using some ink brushes. So easy and so fun. It's a really fun way to color. I enjoyed that so much. And then you can just finish it off with some glitter glue and just some ways to kind of embellish it. Another way for your embossing folders is do it on black cardstock and then add some glaze. So this particular glaze is from Cosmic Shimmer, but you can add that glaze and then you can see it pop right off. You see the beautiful image, add a sentiment. It's going to be great. So easy. I love dry embossing and I am so excited that I got back into it. All right, let's talk about the next one, Embossing Resist. This is where you're stamping with a sticky clear ink and then you're going to pour white embossing powder over it. I recommend white. And then you're going to heat set that. Now what that's going to do is it's going to be creating sort of a plasticky coating where your image was, and now it's going to resist whenever you put any ink on top of it. Now in particular for this example, I'm using gouache, which is a mixture between acrylic and watercolor paint. Any paint will do, any ink will do. Ink from your markers, your ink blending brushes, or excuse me, your pads, it doesn't matter. Just any ink, but you're going to add water to it and then you're going to get this ink resist. You can also do this by ink blending on top of the image. That will work as well. I'm just showing you an example with watercolor, okay? So it's going to resist and now you're going to be able to see that background pop through. It's so fun. I have to say, this is like magic. It's so fun. It reminds me of a kid when we had those invisible markers and then all of a sudden they show up. Oh, so fun. And that's what we should be doing, right? We should be playing in our craft room. We should be having a good time. This is stress relief. So there's some examples of the Emboss Resist. I'm going to show you another one. And this is using a different product. So like I said, there's a lot of ways you can go within each of these topics. This is just a way to sort of spark some inspiration for you to pull out your stuff. This way, I'm doing the same thing. I'm stamping it, pouring the powder over, heat setting the powder. Now my friend word is going to be in that embossing. So I'm going to resist it. I'm using some of the powders. I'll link below what they're called. I forget what they're called off the top of my head. Color bursts, that's it. And you're going to spritz with water, and you're going to be able to see it resist, right? And now you can see the underlay. So whether this is an image or it's words like here, you're going to be able to see that. Here's another example where it's resisted. We just used colored embossing. I'm crafting with my daughter. At that time, I think she was 10. She's now 14. So just wanted to show this example. But really fun on color bursts. I have neglected you. I shall be pulling you out very, very soon, and you'll get a video. I'll be sharing a video soon about that. This isn't an emboss resist technique, but this is also just a reminder to that you can emboss things on top of the backgrounds that you make. Right now I made a bunch of military cards or military themed cards in this video, and you can see how fun that embossing is on top of your backgrounds. It really makes it elegant. It kind of levels up the design quite a bit. So don't forget that you can do that. Just emboss right over your backgrounds that you're making. Really, really fun technique. Okay, let's move into, I think I saved the best for last. For me, this is my favorite, is stenciling. I think stenciling is just wonderful. There are so many ways that you can do stenciling. Now in this very first example, I made this stencil. Of course, you can buy tons. I have tons of stencils, but I just wanted to also encourage you that you don't have to spend a lot of money on some of these techniques. You can really just pull out stuff you already have, like dies and cardstock, and you can just have a different way to get crafty. So that's from a personally made stencil. But right here, again, this is just a standard way that you would use a stencil. You place it down on your cardstock, you cover it with your ink, however you want to do that. You can use sprays. You can use embossing paste where you wipe it over your stencil to get more of a raised look. I just find stencils to be endless. There's just so many things that you can do with them. Stencils are amazing, and I would be remiss if I did not share with you that I have a stencil class that I did live and then edited down to a replay version for you if you want to access that as well. And with that stencil class, you're also going to get its own download with the same sort of setup with pictures, inspiration, close-up photos, links for that. And you're going to be able to be inspired for your stencils as well. Lots and lots of different ways to use stencils. So click that link for the stencil class replay and for the download with it in the description box below too. All right, more examples of fun. Now this is something different you can do with your stencils by turning your stencil. So let's say you have an example like this where you sort of have this burst. You don't have to keep it like that. You don't have to keep just what the stencil looks like. You can twist your stencils and you can get more from them. And as you know, if you hang out with me on my channel, that is my mantra. Let's get the max out of our stuff that we have. This stuff isn't cheap. And we want to also stay inspired to keep using them and not feel like you have to keep purchasing more. Right, so I am twisting my stencil around. Now, some of them you're not going to get a perfect image as you twist. That's fine, but I'm still getting a full background. I'm choosing, that's sort of what I'm going for, is choosing to get this full background using this stencil that wasn't really intended for that. Otherwise, it would have been covered in stars. And that's not what the stencil is made for, but I am creating in a new way. And so that was really fun to do, and also just wanted to share it as a reminder. Pull out your stuff. Now I just added a star, a sentiment, and it is done. That background is so fun. I'm not done with stencils yet. I want to show you a couple more ways to get outside the box of stencils. One is to do your stencil as intended and then offset it a little bit. And what we're looking for here is to get sort of that shadow look from the stencil. And this isn't a 2 stencil set, this is just one. Now, as I was going through this particular card, I actually went back over it and darkened it up a little bit, so you'll see. But anyway, the point is that I'm getting sort of the shadow look from just one stencil, and it's really fun. It's really cool looking when you see it up front. I also think this lends to a more masculine look, this particular card, so that's another thing I wanted to throw out there in case you struggle with masculine cards like I have definitely have in the past. And so yeah, just add some fun bows and a sentiment and your card is finished. Okay, let's move on to the next thing, and this is masking and stenciling. So masking is in of itself an entirely other fun way to make your backgrounds. It's not in my top 5 today, but it is really, really fun to do. What I'm doing here is I've masked to make this star the center piece of this card panel, but then I'm stenciling over it. So multiple ways or multiple supplies, you can merge them together. It's not mixed media necessarily what I'm doing here, but I'm using multiple techniques in one. And when I pull this masking paper back, by the way, I'm using rock, paper, scissors, removable sticker paper. It's way less expensive than crafting masking paper. I highly recommend it. And here I'm just showing you that you could do the opposite too. Take what's left over, mask that off, and stencil as well, so you get these 2 different looks. So there you have it, my 5 favorite ways to make backgrounds with subdivisions underneath each of those. I hope you had fun with me. Well, I hope this was helpful to get you inspired, get you in your crafty space, and have a good time with your stuff, because that's really what it's all about. A quick reminder, I would love to have you hit the thumbs up for this video and subscribe, and if you want to get notified, hit that bell. I would love to have you join us on a more semi-permanent basis. No commitments needed. Just come hang out with us whenever you feel inspired to do so. Also, you'll catch all the links that we talked about throughout the video in the description box, as well as any supplies that I use throughout the video. All right, I will see you in the comments down below and in the next video. Bye-bye.